Imagine this. You're in a massive auditorium somewhere in Los Angeles. The red carpet has just been rolled out. Reporters rush to their mics. The crowd is screaming, and somewhere backstage there's a heated debate going on. Not about who wore the best designer suit, not about who's dating who, but something far bigger. A group of American music journalists, Grammy voters, Billboard editors, Rolling Stone veterans are gathered in a roundtable unlike any other. Their mission? To rank BTS members. But not by looks. Not by popularity. Not even by their fashion collabs. This time, they're being judged by something deeper. Their impact on the music world. The real question is, who among them changed the industry the most? Who made waves that were felt beyond ARMY? And who unexpectedly inspired a generation of musicians, not just fans? Before we reveal their controversial, emotional, and at times shocking ranking, let's ask the hard questions. When BTS debuted in 2013, did anyone really expect they'd rewrite the rulebook of global music? Can stage presence alone shake industry standards in America, the UK, and beyond? Or is it the quiet work, the songwriting, the production, the performances under pressure that earns a place in music history? And let's be honest, ranking BTS members is like asking a parent to pick their favorite child. But when journalists were given full freedom, no corporate filters, no fanbase pressure, and asked, which BTS member left the most positive impact on global music? They answered with surprising honesty. Some answers were obvious. Others left the room silent. There were tears, disagreements, even rewrites. Because this wasn't just about who sold the most albums. It was about who stood up when no one else would. Who changed something deep within the industry. And who redefined what it means to be an artist in the 21st century. So grab your headphones, sit back, and let's go on a journey. Through stories never told, achievements overlooked, and moments where real music changed forever because of 7 young men from South Korea. This is not just a countdown. It's a reflection, a tribute, and maybe a challenge for all of us to rethink what true impact looks like. Let the ranking begin. Number 7. The silent backbone, always steady. In a room full of fireworks, someone needs to be the gravity. Someone who doesn't shout the loudest, but keeps the ship from tipping over when storms hit. And for many American journalists, that someone is J-Hope. Surprised he's number 7? Don't be, because this isn't about who's the flashiest on stage or whose solo album dominated Spotify last month. This is about impact, quiet, steady, powerful impact. And J-Hope? He's been that guy all along. Let's rewind to 2014. BTS was still considered an underdog group niche, raw, too loud, too different. While the world tried to label them, J-Hope was in the studio, crafting some of the group's most experimental and energetic choreographies. Boy in Love, that intense, sharp routine, J-Hope had a major hand in shaping its look. Dope? That iconic intro where each member plays a different job. That energy? That's him too. He was more than just a rapper. He was the visual language of BTS's early rise, the movement that caught people's eyes on YouTube when words failed to cross borders. But J-Hope didn't stop at dancing. He dove into the music head first. His first solo mixtape, Hope World, wasn't just a splash in the K-pop ocean, it made waves on Billboard's World Albums chart. The color, the optimism, the fearless experimentation. It gave American audiences something fresh, something joyful, something different from the rest of BTS's darker narratives. Critics from NPR to Variety pointed out how Hope World reflected a pure artistic vision rarely seen in debut solo projects. Even his 2022 project, Jack in the Box, was a genre shift that made industry heads turn. Gone was the sunshine and flowers in came grunge, hip-hop grit, and a raw, vulnerable J-Hope many hadn't seen before. It wasn't about breaking charts. It was about showing growth, risk, artistry. And critics loved it. Rolling Stone even described the album as a declaration of independence and reinvention. Then came his historic performance at Lollapalooza in Chicago, the first Korean artist to headline a major US festival. Think about that. No translator, no backup crutch, just J-Hope, live, raw, in front of tens of thousands of non-Korean fans, and he owned that stage. Journalists called it a turning point, not just for him, but for Asian artists being seen as full-fledged headliners in the American festival scene. And here's the thing, J-Hope never begs for the spotlight. He doesn't need to. His work ethic, humility, and constant evolution have become a blueprint for artists trying to balance creativity and discipline. He doesn't scream, "Look at me." He simply does the work, always. That's why journalists say he's the backbone of BTS, because even when no one's watching, he's holding the group together, with warmth. with precision, with hope. In interviews, fellow members often call him the mood maker. But deeper than that, he's the one they lean on. He listens more than he talks. He watches, then acts. And, in an industry that often rewards noise over nuance, J-Hope's impact is a reminder. Sometimes the strongest force is the one that stays steady when the rest of the world shakes. So while number 7 may seem low, make no mistake, J-Hope is not the bottom. He's the foundation. Coming up next, number 6, the unexpected genius, quietly reshaping sound. Number 6, the unexpected genius, quietly reshaping sound. At number 6, we meet someone journalists say is the composer in the shadows, the man who doesn't just ride the wave, he builds it. Yes, we're talking about Suga, also known as August D, also known as the quiet mind behind some of BTS's most seismic musical moments. He's not always front and center in interviews, and he's not the loudest in the room, but ask anyone in the industry who understands music production, and they'll tell you, Suga isn't just a rapper or a producer. He's a force of nature shaping the very architecture of modern music. Let's talk numbers first because impact has receipts. Suga has over 150 songs registered under his name with the Korea Music Copyright Association, KOMCA. That puts him among the most prolific idols in Korean music history. But these aren't just filler tracks. These are records that touched millions, broke records, and set the tone for BTS's evolution. From I Need You to Blood, Sweat and Tears, from Spring Day to Dachwitta, Suga has proven time and time again that his pen bleeds both pain and poetry. American music journalists consistently point out how rare it is to find a global superstar who also works like an underground artist. Suga's production style, heavily influenced by East Coast hip-hop, lo-fi, and raw analog sounds, refuses to conform to top 40 predictability. He weaves classical piano with trap beats, samples old Korean folk instruments, and throws in haunting vocal distortions, all while rapping bars that unpack trauma, loneliness, depression, ambition, and healing. Take his August D project, for example. In 2016, without the backing of a huge marketing push, Suga dropped this mixtape and broke the silence on mental health in K-pop. He rapped about social phobia, about being suicidal, about struggling to love himself, while fans screamed his name. It was raw, brutal, and honest, and the American press noticed. Forbes, Time, and The Guardian praised it as a breakthrough moment in idol transparency. A Korean rapper speaking on mental health? That was unheard of, until Suga did it. But he didn't stop there. In 2020, D2, his second August D project, dropped with the seismic single Dachwitta, a fusion of Korean traditional music and trap that stunned even Western producers. The music video, a cinematic, bloody, Joseon-era fever dream. The lyrics, a flex, a diary, a revolution. Billboard and Genius called it a rare blend of historical pride and modern rebellion. American producers started asking, how did he make that sound work? Even Kanye would raise a brow. Suga's impact isn't just musical, it's ideological. He proves that you don't need to fit the Western mold to be heard in Western markets. You don't need to erase your identity to chart on Billboard. Instead, he doubles down on his story, his roots, his pain, his genius, and that's what makes his influence so deeply respected in journalistic circles. Behind the scenes, he's also one of BTS's most involved members in production meetings, arrangements, and sonic direction. Many of their more introspective songs, The Truth Untold, Seesaw, Blue and Grey, have his fingerprints all over them. And when BTS shifted from hard-hitting bangers to vulnerable ballads that broke armies' hearts, it was often Suga leading that evolution, quietly, consistently, brilliantly. Even more recently, his world tour under the name August D was another moment of personal impact. He stood on stage alone, not as a pop star, but as an artist, performing heartbreak, rage, healing. American critics saw him not as a K-pop idol doing his solo, but as a genuine storyteller. One reviewer from Pitchfork wrote, "Suga is the kind of artist who doesn't ask for your attention. He earns it, bar by bar." So why is he at number 6? Because his impact doesn't scream, it echoes. It's not the kind that dominates TikTok trends, it haunts studio walls. Suga is not just a rapper in BTS, he is a sound architect, a cultural translator, a visionary who turned pain into platinum. Next, we climb higher. Number 5. The global charmer who rewrote the rules of masculinity. Number 5. The global charmer who rewrote the rules of masculinity. Standing confidently at number 5 is the man who made the world rethink what it means to be a man in the music industry, Jimin. To fans, he's known for his angelic voice and graceful movements. But to American journalists, Jimin represents something far more revolutionary. He's the face of a new masculinity, one that embraces softness, vulnerability, and elegance without sacrificing power, stage command, or global influence. And that, they say, may be one of the most underrated impacts BTS has had on the Western music landscape. Let's rewind to the early years. When BTS first started performing on American shows, think The Ellen Show, Jimmy Fallon, and American Music Awards, audiences unfamiliar with K-pop often reacted with curiosity. Who was this petite guy with soft features and a voice like silk, moving like he was floating but hitting hard with every beat? That was Jimin. He wasn't trying to be the toughest or the loudest. He didn't wear brute masculinity like armor. Instead, he brought something that had been missing from the pop stage in the US for decades: grace as strength. And here's what caught critics off guard. Jimin didn't tone it down for the American audience. He brought hanbok-inspired stage outfits, delicate choreographies, high-pitched falsettos, and a quiet emotional depth, and he owned it. Songs like Lie, Serendipity, and Filter weren't just pretty, they were complex, layered performances that merged ballet, contemporary, and modern K-pop fluidity into something mesmerizing. Billboard writers praised Jimin's solo stages for carving out an emotional space rare for male performers on such a global scale. Then came Like Crazy, his 2023 solo single that made history. The song didn't just top global charts, it debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Jimin the first Korean solo artist in history to do so. This wasn't just a victory for him. This was a seismic shift in how American charts perceived Korean soloists. And the song? Vulnerable, atmospheric, haunted by longing. It was a dance track that made you cry while you moved, and American critics loved it. NPR called it a cinematic, synth-drenched spiral into beautiful melancholy. Rolling Stone said it echoed the emotional landscapes of The Weeknd, but with sharper vulnerability. But Jimin's impact doesn't stop at music. His very existence challenges Western norms around gender and beauty. While American male pop stars often lean into hypermasculinity, Jimin showed that it's okay, even powerful, to be gentle, to wear pearls, to cry on stage, to hug your members, to speak about self-doubt openly. Fashion icons from Vogue to GQ America took note, calling him one of the most stylish and genre-defying male idols in the world. Not because he followed trends, but because he set them, just by being himself. Behind the scenes, journalists have noted that Jimin is the emotional glue of BTS. He's the one checking in with the others after shows, the one wiping away tears when no one's watching, the one who breaks first when fans cry because he feels so much. That emotional openness, often looked down upon in male celebrities, became one of the most cherished traits ARMY connected with, and it rippled into the broader conversation about what artists can and should show of themselves. Even during award season, fashion week, or red carpet events, Jimin became a quiet storm. His appearance at Paris Fashion Week for Dior in 2025 broke global media coverage. Why? Because he arrived not just as a guest, but as a global ambassador, earning $33.8 million in media impact value from just that one appearance. That's the kind of number that makes brands listen not to a trend, but to a man who's become a movement. So why is Jimin number 5? Because he rewrote the rules not with a fight, but with a smile. He challenged toxic masculinity not by attacking it, but by ignoring it altogether. He gave young men around the world permission to be soft, to feel deeply, to move with elegance, to speak with honesty, and still be stars. He's not just a dancer, not just a singer. He's a mirror, reflecting back a version of manhood we've all been waiting to see. Next, the spotlight grows even brighter. Number 4. The mastermind behind the curtain, building legacies in silence. Here we are, approaching the upper tier of the list, and coming in at number 4 is the man journalists often describe as the invisible giant of BTS, RM. Also known as Kim Namjoon, RM isn't just the leader of BTS, he's the blueprint, the compass, the quiet strategist whose choices, words, and philosophies have steered the group not just towards superstardom, but toward becoming a cultural phenomenon. And to music journalists across the US, that's not just leadership, that's legacy work. Now, if you've followed BTS from the beginning, you know RM's story is unlike any other. He was a lyrical prodigy in Korea's underground rap scene before he was even out of high school. Fluent in English thanks to watching Friends, he became the unofficial ambassador between BTS and the Western media, long before K-pop had consistent representation in global press rooms. Every time the group faced skepticism, whether at the Billboard Music Awards, United Nations, or Grammys, RM was the one with the mic, the message, and the poise. But RM's impact runs deeper than interviews. He's a writer, a composer, a curator of emotion. More than 170 songs are registered under his name, and many of BTS's most emotionally resonant tracks, Spring Day, Trivia, Love, Persona, Life Goes On, carry his lyrical fingerprints. His writing doesn't pander, it challenges. It reflects, it wonders. American critics have pointed out how rare it is to hear a pop star wax poetic about identity, self-worth, and existential doubt, and even rarer for those thoughts to resonate with both a teenage fan in Dallas and a philosophy professor in Boston. Take, for instance, BTS's 2018 speech at the United Nations, where RM stood before world leaders and declared, "Speak yourself." That phrase didn't just trend, it triggered global school campaigns, mental health discussions, and personal reflections across borders. It's rare that an artist's influence can be measured in movements rather than just numbers, but RM did just that. American media outlets like CNN, The New York Times, and Time magazine credited that moment as a milestone for music's evolving role in global youth empowerment. And then there's his solo work. RM's solo albums from Mono, in 2018 to Indigo, in 2022, have earned critical acclaim not because they're flashy, but because they're raw, introspective, and real. Indigo in particular was a revelation, a sonic art gallery featuring jazz, indie rock, folk, and lo-fi hip-hop, all orbiting around Namjoon's inner monologue. Pitchfork called it a quiet triumph, while Rolling Stone included it in their best albums of 2022. Through these works, RM carved out a solo identity that American journalists deeply respect not as a pop idol, but as a thinking artist. But let's not forget, RM is also the glue that holds BTS together. Ask any member who they go to when they're breaking down, doubting themselves, or just needing direction, and the answer is always the same: Namjoon Hyung. He doesn't just manage schedules or give pep talks, he gives meaning. In chaotic group decisions, he brings stillness. In pressure-filled moments, he offers vision. He's not just a member of BTS, he's its soul. And while he could have easily chased fame on his own, RM has always been about the collective. He could have gone solo years ago, and journalists know it, but he stayed. He lifted others. He ensured BTS would be a legacy, not just a trend. That's the kind of leadership the American music industry often talks about, but rarely sees in action. So why number 4? Because sometimes the greatest impact doesn't come from center stage. It comes from behind the curtain. From the hand that steers, the mind that builds, and the heart that never needs credit. Kim Namjoon didn't just shape BTS. He shaped how the world listens to them. Up next, and things are only getting hotter. Number 3. The beauty icon who silenced critics with his artistry. At number 3, we find a name that American fashion magazines worship and music critics have learned to take very seriously. V, also known as Kim Tae-young. While the media once obsessed over his dazzling looks, labeling him the most handsome man alive, or the face that launched 1,000 tweets, they eventually had to sit down and admit, there's way more behind that face than they expected. To American journalists, Tae-young isn't just a visual, he's a paradox, timeless and experimental, mysterious yet open, classic but wildly ahead of his time. And in terms of artistic impact, he's a game changer. Let's start with his voice. V's baritone is unlike anything mainstream K-pop has offered: low, soulful, gravelly, almost jazzy. When BTS broke into American airwaves with DNA and Mic Drop, Tae-young's parts immediately stood out. Deep, seductive, unexpected. As one Rolling Stone critic put it, his voice cuts through the air like smoke in a velvet lounge. In a landscape where tenors dominate the pop scene, V brought an earthy elegance that caught the ears of vocal coaches and producers alike. Then came Singularity, his solo track on Love Yourself, Tear. From the first haunting note to the mesmerizing choreography with a coat hanger, yes, a coat hanger, American critics were stunned. NPR described it as the song that made BTS a serious contender for artistry, not just virality. The track was smooth, slow, sultry, the opposite of what boy band solos usually offer. And that's Tae-young in a nutshell. He doesn't do what's expected, he does what's true to him. But perhaps the most surprising twist in Tae-young's story is what he chose to do outside of BTS. Instead of rushing to drop pop hits like his peers, he turned inward, crafting a sound that feels more like a Parisian cafe than a K-pop stadium. His 2023 solo debut, Layover, was a love letter to vintage jazz, 70-second soul, and minimalist R&B. Critics at Pitchfork and The New Yorker were shocked, not because it was bold, but because it was so restrained. The songs didn't shout. They whispered. And that whisper reverberated. Slow Dancing, Rainy Days, and Love Me Again weren't Billboard Chasing hits, they were art pieces, each echoing with loneliness, longing, and warm analog textures. And guess what? American critics loved it. In fashion, Taehyung's influence exploded even earlier. Journalists note how he didn't just attend shows, he became the moment. Sitting next to Celine's Hedi Slimane in Paris, check. Getting personal invites from Gucci and Cartier? Of course. Front row in Dior and Louis Vuitton? Standard. But it wasn't just about presence, it was about preference. Taehyung wears genderless silhouettes, vintage suits, brooches, pearls mixing feminine softness with masculine structure in a way that redefined male elegance. Fashion editors from Vogue US to Esquire credited him with reintroducing classic menswear to Gen Z and making it feel sensual again. And let's not ignore his role in shifting attitudes. V's calm, introverted public persona gave permission to millions, especially young men, to be gentle, to enjoy quiet, to embrace stillness. In an industry driven by spectacle, V's greatest power was his ability to say more by doing less. He was the pause in the noise, and that's radical. Behind the camera, his photography, yes, he's also an analog photographer, gained traction in American art blogs and visual magazines. His photo series Vontae revealed an eye for light, texture, and emotion. Again, critics were stunned. How does this man not chase clout and still end up setting the tone? So why is Taehyung number 3? Because while others chased charts, he built a world. Because his beauty made people look, but his artistry made them stay. Because his music didn't follow trends, it resisted them. Because even in silence, he leads. Next up, we're stepping into territory that left even seasoned journalists speechless. Number 2. The golden voice who took over the world stage solo. And here we are, number 2. The name that American late-night hosts, Grammy voters, fashion houses, TikTok stars, and Spotify editors all say with respect. The member who turned his voice into a global currency. The one who didn't just break records, he became the standard. It's none other than Jungkook, the youngest of BTS, the so-called golden maknae, and to US journalists, quite simply, a once-in-a-generation pop phenomenon. Let's be clear, Jungkook wasn't always destined to be the most visible. In the early days, he was the shy teenager with star potential, but little control over it. But fast forward to now, he's a global soloist standing shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Justin Bieber, The Weeknd, and Harry Styles, and not just because he's popular, but because his voice, versatility, and vision are undeniable. And that's a distinction American journalists don't throw around lightly. It started gradually. His solo lines in BTS songs became instant fan-favorite moments, from the emotional rawness of Euphoria to the melodic glide in My Time. Billboard critics noted that Jungkook had what many in pop lacked. A voice that could be vulnerable and powerful at once. It could whisper, scream, float, cry all in one verse. And when Western producers got to work with him, they saw it instantly. This wasn't just a boy band singer. This was a monster-level vocalist. Then came 2023, and Jungkook exploded. His debut solo single 7 featuring Latto wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural event. The song debuted at No. 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the Global 200, and Billboard Global XL. US all in the same week. That feat alone put him in the league of chart giants. But it wasn't just the numbers, it was the shift. 7 was a fully English-language track with an international sound blending UK garage beats, smooth R&B hooks, and a feature from an American rapper, all while keeping his own identity intact. Critics from Rolling Stone, Variety, and The Guardian praised it not as K-pop going global, but as Jungkook going popstar mode. And then he did what few Asian artists have been allowed to do. He headlined American and UK morning shows, performed live solo on stage with zero backup from BTS, and dominated Western playlists that rarely made space for Korean voices. The Today Show, BBC Radio 1 Live Lounge, Good Morning America, he wasn't a guest anymore. He was the main act. And journalists? They were stunned. Because Jungkook wasn't trying to break into the West, he was already there, fully formed. His debut solo album Golden proved it wasn't a fluke. Tracks like Standing Next to You, 3D featuring Jack Harlow, and Yes or No showcased a master of genre. From R&B to funk pop to ballads, Jungkook sounded effortless. Billboard described the album as a full-circle pop moment, sleek, global, and vocally impeccable. Time magazine went further, naming him the most natural pop star of the next generation. But what makes Jungkook's impact so deeply respected in American journalistic circles is this. He didn't become a global soloist by distancing himself from BTS. He brought that legacy with him and expanded it. He honored the group, but he didn't hide behind it. That balance? That's something industry veterans say takes years to master. Jungkook did it on his first try. On top of that, he became a visual and performance juggernaut. His Calvin Klein campaign in 2023 wasn't just viral, it redefined how male Asian artists are viewed in Western fashion. Bold, confident, iconic. For the first time, male beauty in Western media wasn't defined by Hollywood or Europe, it was being led by a Korean artist. And still, amidst the fame, Jungkook remained grounded. His vulnerability in live streams, his self-critical nature, and his constant hunger to grow endeared him to not just fans, but industry insiders. Journalists repeatedly noted, "This kid doesn't act like the biggest pop star in the world, but he performs like one." So why number 2? Because he didn't just chase global pop, he became it. And in doing so, Jungkook opened floodgates for Asian male soloists around the world. But if he's number 2, then who could possibly be number 1? Coming up next is a decision that shocked even the journalists themselves. Number 1. The unexpected legend, who redefined stardom itself. You may have guessed it, or maybe you didn't. But American journalists agree the BTS member who left the most profound, transformational, and emotionally resonant impact on the world of music isn't the one who chased headlines. It's the one who embodied sincerity, the one who made the world pause, reflect, feel. And that name, etched in ink and reverence, is Jin Seokjin, the eldest of BTS, the so-called worldwide handsome, and now, worldwide healing. Jin's journey is perhaps the most quietly extraordinary arc in BTS. At first, Western media labeled him as the visual, the face, the prince-like member who looked like he walked out of a K-drama. But that was just the surface. And over time, through years of underrated vocals, emotional ballads, and unshakable kindness, Jin became the soul of the group, a soul that American journalists now say changed the very tone of global pop stardom. Let's rewind. Jin wasn't a trained singer or dancer when he joined Big Hit. He was cast for his looks while studying acting, but instead of coasting, he grinded. He trained harder than anyone. He learned from scratch. And by the time BTS took the global stage, his vocals weren't just up to par, they were crucial. His steady, emotional high notes anchored some of BTS's most iconic songs. Epiphany, Awake, Moon. These weren't just solos. They were healing sessions, wrapped in music. Epiphany, in particular, became an anthem for self-love. Released during the Love Yourself era, its message, "I'm the one I should love in this world," resonated deeply across Western fan bases. It became the soundtrack to therapy sessions, late-night drives, and quiet recoveries. American critics from NPR to Rolling Stone highlighted the track as a moment of spiritual awakening in the group's discography, driven by Jin's crystalline voice and unwavering sincerity. But Jin's power didn't stop at music. Over time, he evolved into a symbol of resilience, of balance, of realness in an industry obsessed with spectacle. While others chased press and profiles, Jin cooked for his members. He sent birthday letters. He checked on staff behind the scenes. He became the comforting presence everyone turned to. And journalists noticed. They started calling him the heartbeat of BTS. When BTS addressed the United Nations in 2021 and again in 2022, Jin's poise struck a chord with political commentators and music critics alike. He wasn't just a performer, he was a leader. Not with dominance, but with grace. His words felt like warm hands around the shoulders of a world breaking down in chaos. And when the pandemic hit, it was Jin's gentleness that stood out most, his way of reminding fans to rest, to laugh, to not be too hard on themselves. In American media, that kind of emotional leadership from a male pop star was unprecedented. Then came The Astronaut, his solo collaboration with Coldplay, a moment that American journalists say cemented his legend. Co-written by Chris Martin and delivered with aching vulnerability, The Astronaut wasn't just a song. It was a goodbye letter before Jin's military service. Its live performance in Argentina left not just fans, but music writers in tears. The lyrics, the hug on stage, the stillness between notes, it was a human moment in an industry of perfection. Time magazine called it one of the most heartbreakingly honest pop performances in recent memory. Chris Martin himself said, "Jin is one of the kindest, most thoughtful people I've ever met in this industry." That sentiment echoed across the press. Not just because Jin was beloved, but because he brought kindness back into the spotlight. In a world spinning on fast fame and hot takes, Jin stood for something else, quiet strength. And that's why, to American journalists, he ranks number 1. Not because he chased Western validation. Not because he broke the most records. But because he did something deeper. He made people feel again. He reminded us that music is human. That real stardom isn't loud, it's lasting. That kindness isn't weakness, it's legacy. Jin didn't have to scream to be heard. He whispered, and the world leaned in. And that's why, when it comes to positive impact on the world of music, Jin stands at the very top. He didn't just walk the road, he lit it for others to follow.